God bless and good morning. A lot to do today, so let's work. Warning: this transmission marks the end of the battle, but don't get soft. You might feel emotional aftershocks that mimic relief but smell like fear, a strange silence that does not feel like peace but absence, and pressure to move on before you sealed what was. If these symptoms rise, sit still. You did not complete a program, you reprogrammed a person. Welcome to Raw for Epoch 2, day 120. The war mode closing ceremony. Only the seal survived. Welcome to full bliss mode. Here's our concept overview. We call this the seal is the system. Today is not about starting over. It is about starting from proof. Here's what you'll learn. Why the finish line is where your real system begins. How to identify if you've completed or just escaped. Why real peace doesn't feel like peace at first. What it means to transition from survival to sovereign operation. And how to seal the door without slamming it shut on your evolution. This is the end of the month, the end of our War Mode Challenge. We're going into May tomorrow, if you haven't realized that. Man, this year is moving fast. Let's get into a visual metaphor. We call this the tattoo under the bandage. Visualize this. Immerse yourself. Close your eyes if it makes you feel better. And imagine getting a tattoo that marks a breakthrough moment. A sacred seal only you know the meaning of. But you don't show it yet. Not because you're hiding it, but because it's still healing. It's wrapped, protected, seeped in silence and ointment. And even though no one else can see it yet, you feel it. Every movement reminds you it is there. Every brush of fabric, every stretch of skin, it itches, it pulses, it burns. Because something is becoming permanent. Now multiply that by your entire life. This is day 120. The final seal isn't a victory lap. It is a sacred bandage over the new you. You don't rush to reveal it. You don't flaunt it for validation. You live it until it becomes the new skin. Only the sealed survive, not because they were loud, but because they endured the healing without peeling it off too early. Are you still confused about what I'm talking about? God bless you on this, I think, Wednesday. Here's my personal perspective. 120 days, 30 challenges, but nobody tells you about finishing a war season, or what nobody tells you about finishing a war season is that peace can feel heavier than battle, because peace forces you to see what the fight left behind. You see, there's a stillness that comes with closure, but there's also a composure that only completion can offer. And that composure, it doesn't come from the applause. It really comes from the ability to shut the door. Let me explain it like this. We talk a lot about building routines, building habits and building systems. But what I really learned is this: you can't live in a blueprint. You gotta build a home, and not just build it, walk through it. Now, I've had the blessing of being able to build my literal house that I live in right now. And when I built it, the builder said something to me I'll never forget. Super dope, super deep. He said, I'm handing you the keys to a structure that isn't a home yet. And it won't be real until it's lived in. And man, did that hit me. Because life is the same way. We build systems, strategies, routines, but they don't become real until you bleed in them, laugh in them, stretch inside them. It isn't until the stairs creak, until the sheetrock cracks, the house shifts, the floors show scuff marks from your spirit dragging itself through. That is when a system becomes a seal. So day 120, 120, 120, it ain't about the finish line. It's the final walkthrough. You're not here to celebrate. You're here to check the wiring, flush the ego, close the loops, run the diagnostic. Because the next move, it is not up. It's deeper. You don't get to build a second home until you've lived all the way through the first one. And now that I've lived in this season, not just built it, but lived in it, this is a full quarter of another year. I can finally carry what was built into what must now be scaled. So I'm not really sad it's over. I'm rooted because I'm sealed. And I'm sealed because I stayed. We're going to get into the Black Book System teaching in a moment. Let's check the chat at 4:08 on a Wednesday. Let's pause also for a brief moment of reflection. Closure, milestones, completing things. I can say straight up, yesterday, the day before the last episode of a month that I said would be a full challenge, war mode challenge, I thought it was one of the worst episodes I've had. And I've said this before because I've had the way things iteratively, Jesus Lord, iteratively become better. Sometimes it can be iteratively worse. In that, at some juncture, you make so much good forward progress that the step back, they're a lot more scarce. But when it happens, because you've made so many steps forward, you're like, yo, how did I do that? And it's natural, like any step back. It hurts. Like real time, I was sitting in my seat yesterday as I was performing, feeling like, this ain't really it. But that's okay, because that's life. That's the reality. We talk regularly about the pendulum swings. But I'd be remiss to not say again that I offer you humbly, respectfully, the possibility that I am nothing to really clap for. I don't really look for the applause. I said it in my personal perspective and in the overview. It's not about the applause. But because I am like you, no different, I set goals like you, no different, I am very much aligned with the standard behavior of living my life. Regular dude. I have a goal that I'm putting on display. I have milestones. I can immediately reflect and say 120 days, the last 30 explicitly. I would do so many things different. So many things different that I'm already putting into perspective for day 121 going forward. And it's very easy to see the losses. And I assure you that part of moving up and you build a house, And even having built literally my own house, 7 years into building my own house, my wife and I, we reflect sometimes and we have a moment of, oh, we could have changed this component and we could have changed this layout and we could have changed this dressing that we added. And all of it is relevant, but all of it from perspective is to say, I wouldn't have known unless I built the house. And you wouldn't even have known unless you not just built the house, but lived in the house, battled in the house, went through difficulties in the house. So I say this often because in doing a lot of what this is and some of the things you might be doing to move yourself forward and catapult yourself forward, we have this tendency, and I've said this before, but worth repeating, to reflect and say, oh, that didn't look good. Oh, now that I know better, oh, that looked terrible. No, you needed that season. You needed the season to establish the root. You needed the season to build the basement. You needed the season to have a foundation for which the rest of the house can stand on. That's what the routines are for. That's what the consistency in the same direction is for. That is what the proof, the remembrance, the reflection, the going back and saying, oh, I see it. Oh, I see it. It's not the cringe at it. So as we're going to close the month, 30 days, I can already assure you that when I do this again, because I will do this again, because I think it's valuable for myself and for the movement, it will be better. But I could not have gotten better until I proved that I can at least fundamentally do it. And there's that reality to investing in yourself. You're looking for a return on investment for yourself, through yourself, as yourself in iterative form. I'm getting better at saying that iterative word. Just had to say it a few times. It's early, 4:13. But that's the compound effect and the stacking. You still get punched in the mouth. You still bleed. It still hurts. I don't know why we have to say that, but we do. But until you challenge yourself and complete a challenge for yourself and mark it and seal it, regardless of the specificity around the trophy you might have earned. The trophy and the earnings, especially new, is in the completion. Yes, I completed it. Exhale. Pat yourself on the back. Why? Because you did what you said you would do. And now you want to use time. If I'm completing a quarter, well, actually, it's more than a quarter. I don't know why I did that, but I broke it into 4, 8, 12. A third of the year is gone. We're into quarter 2, actually, of the year. But a third of the year is gone. 120 days. I don't reflect back and cringe on anything. I don't regret not a singular thing that I've done. Why use singular? Singular's been on my mind lately. But there isn't, from the most minute and minuscule and micro, I loved every second of it, including the fact that yesterday I was like, yo, that was terrible, Jeff. I laid down with I got a little couch behind me. I laid down and prayed on it. Dude, that was terrible. You know how I knew that? Because foundationally, I had already established a premise and a precedent for what is great, what is not so great, what is sort of the standard, what can I expect at a baseline? And then I invest, and then I invest, and I invest. And then you take a step back, like a stock play, right? You need downward pressure sometimes for the explosion up top. The biggest thing we're talking about, what we're doing here, we're going to transition into a new month tomorrow. You might have built a house. You might have missed some things. You ever put something together, got something from IKEA or something, you order something, it came in, and when you're done, there's like 5 screws left over, and you're like, man, where'd those screws go? How'd I miss that? Yeah, that's life. If you had the chance to build it again, you might miss 3 screws until one day there's no screws left over. And even in that way, the point that I'm really trying to drive about where we're at is that now that it's built, go live in it. Don't just move on and bounce around. You got to optimize everything you've done because you might be good at it, you're not great at it. There's still room to grow. This is when you start lifting a little heavier. If you're with me for 120 days, or if you've invested 120 days, or whatever it is you've invested in, where it's easier to get up same time, same place every day. I just keep returning back, and I keep returning back, and I keep returning back, and I keep asking God, and I keep asking Root, and I keep asking Source. It's almost madness, right? Like it's almost like the life is your sensei, and it keeps telling you go away, and you keep coming back. Go away, and you keep coming back, and it gives you a little reward to tell you you're doing good, a little pat on the back. And you come back. That's you applying pressure. And it doesn't get brighter, it gets darker. And now that the house is built, you close the door, you pull all the shades down, and you go even darker. Why? You got to live in the house. You establish the baseline. You establish the routine. You know what it's like now. You know what it feels like. You know when it feels right. You know when it feels off. You know when it just feels. Don't overlook that. Don't minimize that. That's immensely valuable to any sort of growth. And we know the process isn't linear. So you lift a little bit heavier. You should have a lot more stamina. You should have a lot more wisdom. Time should actually be moving a lot faster. Because you should be boom, 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 boom. Compound effect, applying the pressure, waking up when you said you would, executing like you said you would, pushing the boundary, extending your limits over and over and over and over. That is the cliche of discipline. That is the only way towards expansion for your life in any direction. Physical, spiritual, emotional, psychological, anything. The experience of life. So now as we transition into the system teaching, and we'll talk about the final ceiling mechanics. The beauty of building the house is you get to live in it. The beauty of being consistent is that you get to do the same thing a little bit different and enhance it a little bit more, and you build the roots a little bit stronger. Don't just open the windows. Don't just reveal it like the tattoo in the metaphor. Keep it covered for a little while. Nobody needs to know yet. Nobody needs to know ever. The beauty about establishing the root and building on top of it is that you can go way harder. And you can reveal so much more that you didn't even know was there because you were too busy building the structure. When the structure's built, you test it, you fortify it. You go deeper. There's nothing to celebrate yet, except for the fact that you get to do more of what you said you would. Here's the Black Book system teaching, the final ceiling mechanics. Why the finish line is where your real system begins. The end of a challenge isn't the end of the system. It's the confirmation that your current system can sustain pressure. Graduation isn't an exit. It's a license to operate at a higher bandwidth. If you stop here, your system wasn't sealed. It was simply stressed. Completing a milestone, the finite for the infinite. You want to have something you can reflect on and say, I completed it. And then you almost want to run the same race, just faster. Otherwise, you went through massive stress, and if you pause here, you triggered all the chemical processes, the biological, everything in your body, the neurological processes for growth. You stressed it. And then your body, your mind, and your spirit prepared itself for growth, prepared itself for higher bandwidth. And if you stop, all you do is regress back. And all you'll ever figure out from this was that you completed a micro milestone and it was pretty cool. And all you did was stress yourself out. And you're going to question, why did I do that? Don't stop. A completion is just an opportunity to start again. How to identify if you completed or just escaped? Completion leaves residue, proof, peace, alignment. Escape leaves residue too. Guilt, distraction, avoidance. So what's the key indicator? What did you take with you when you left? If you left the lesson behind, you didn't complete, you fled. Don't cringe at your reflection. Learn from your reflection. There's a lesson, and inside of that lesson is another lesson, is another lesson, is another lesson. What did you take with you when you left? Why real peace doesn't feel like peace at first? Look, real peace doesn't arrive with confetti. It arrives with silence. And silence exposes everything you used to distract yourself with. That discomfort, that's the detox. That's your nervous system rebooting. If you are holding yourself accountable and you are into the madness so deep that you are celebrating just with yourself, there's a reality to knowing that you've sort of checked the box and you can return to comfort. And paradoxically, you'll feel a discomfort that you can return to comfort, that the comfort whispers to you, yo, you just completed it. You did what you said you were going to do. You can pause. You cannot pause. Or you can. But you should feel a massive sensation of discomfort. Because to do all that and stop, I don't even have a word for it. But your nervous system literally is rebooting itself because you've just elevated, even if it's just by a half step up. And that half step dissipates faster than anything you can possibly fathom from a time perspective. You will be comfortable so fast, you'll forget you ever moved. Don't do it to yourself. Here's what it means to transition from survival to sovereign operation. Survival says, let me breathe. Sovereignty says, let me build. Survival depends on stimulus. Sovereignty creates from stillness. The SEAL don't wait for safety. They produce from their protocol. Force yourself into a state where you are again drowning. Don't inhale and exhale so deeply that you forget what it feels like to be restricted from breathing. The distance between you and what you see for yourself should always feel like you are gasping for air. And you are not even gasping, you're grasping. I wrote that down as part of my journaling yesterday. I was reflecting. Your soul is it grasping for air because it's looking for more life. You don't need to breathe, you need to build. If it is safe, you are in the wrong space for growth. The only thing safety affirms for you is that that level has been completed. Walk out of the room and seek a new room. Walk out of the relationship and seek a new relationship. God has already moved. And if you don't move, you run the risk of staying exactly where you are again. Here's how to seal the door without slamming it shut on your evolution, which I like to say is the evolution. You don't run from the room, you document it. Seal it in reflection, codify it in proof. Leave the door closed, but leave a record of how you got out. Because the next version of you, they'll need the blueprint, not just the memory. There's consequences. How we operate as people, the mind. There is a reality to, if it wasn't already abundantly clear, the milestone of completion is conducive to positivity around closure. Closure doesn't mean game over. It means levels. But you close that door and you take with it everything that allowed you to close the door. You use it to reflect, to understand. The way I said, my next 30 days can't be like my last 30 days. Today can't be like it was yesterday. I came on today like, yo, you will not repeat yesterday. Now, because the way it works, I'll have another fallout. You will have more conflict. You wouldn't grow otherwise. But you don't leverage it, or you leverage it as a blueprint for what needs to push you towards the next room and then have you be successful in the next room. Because if for nothing else, when the room gets bigger, you got to at least assess and evaluate. Yo, there's more space. There's more people. The next room has also people who are higher level than the people who you were previously with. Not an indictment, not casting aspersions. It's reality. Because if you complete a room and you are now elevated above the room and you stay in that room will regress you. There's consequences. 428 on a Wednesday. Have I said God bless you yet? Well, God bless you. The consequences of inaction. If you don't fully walk through what you just built, you recycle old challenges in new disguises. You'll confuse chaos, withdrawal, with boredom. You'll jump to the next build without blueprinting the last. You'll keep chasing rest without ever receiving it. You'll mislabel survival as strategy. You'll leave the home unfinished and wonder why no one visits. And worst of all, you'll prove you were never sealed. You were just surviving structure, never living in authorship. Consider the consequences. All right. Here's how we seal this thing. The first thing you want to do, we call it the final proof pulse. Write down 3 undeniable things you built, changed, or completed. Don't think, remember. Proof isn't opinion, it's pattern. Why is reflection so important? Proof is not opinion, it is pattern. If you've woke up or gotten up earlier, if you started to work out consistently, if you started to journal consistently, if you've removed substances from your life, alcohol, any sort of drugs, TV, social media, you can build by subtracting. In fact, you got to create space. Maybe you took this whole month to create space. Maybe you've done a lot of subtracting. But what are 3 undeniable things you have built? What's the new pattern? The second thing we want to do is We call this stillness to seal. Schedule 12 minutes. I don't know why I chose 12, but that's the number. Of non-transactional silence. No input, no performance. Let the weight of everything you've done catch you. If you sit in silence long enough and you reflect deeply enough, you can appreciate the weight and the magnitude of the power of silence and the power of what you've done to bring you silence. Then you want to re-enter with order. If you've challenged yourself, identify your post-challenge rhythm. Don't crash, don't coast. Step into bliss mode with order, not absence. All right, it's time for our phone tap for the day. Audit, remix, re-record. You got the call. Now move like it's recorded. Let's start with an audit. Audit one lesson from this challenge that tried to escape documentation. For example, you started journaling but stopped after week 2. You had breakthrough moments but never wrote them down. Audit the proof file. Own the missing footage. And if it wasn't clear, it's okay. 2 weeks of positivity followed by 2 weeks of maybe degradation. You still had 2 more weeks than you did previously. Find the positive. Then you want to remix. Remix the false version of yourself you almost ran back to. That's waiting to coddle you and stick a bottle in your mouth. You almost defaulted to that I need a break identity. You almost mislabeled friction as burnout. You almost quit and called it timing. You almost let peace seduce you into paralysis. Don't do that. Then you want to re-record. Re-record your exit with one final move of system mastery. For example, send that text. There are some texts that need to be sent. Post that short. Make the decision. Burn the backup plan if you haven't already. Not for noise, for alignment. Not to end with a bang, to end with proof. I don't know about you, but I did what I said I would do. I was where I said I would be, and I moved how I said I would move. And I'll continue. So let's finalize this. A challenge is not just a set of tasks. It is a system simulator and stimulant. And every time you complete a system without a seal, you teach your subconscious that partial progress is completion. You train yourself to build blueprints, but never break ground. So here's what makes day 100. Here's what makes day 120 different. You didn't just learn the moves, you became the systems. And sealed systems don't restart, they reboot with memory. This is the final truth. You do not need a reset. You need a return to your seal, to your authorship, to the memory of who you became when nobody was watching. War mode is over. But the real proof, you're still standing. Own it or be owned by it. You either run the system or the system runs you. Change your mind, change your life. I am who I say I am. Do you and stay rich.